Hello, my name is Nathan Peterson and I am a specialist with OCD and anxiety. Today we are talking about Harm OCD and what the treatment looks like for you. Before we go into that though, make sure you are subscribed to my channel so you do not miss any other treatment videos that are going to be really helpful for your OCD and anxiety. So I have a whole video on what Harm OCD actually looks like. We'll go through a short rundown of what it looks like and what the treatment would be for your OCD. This type of OCD makes individuals feel like they can't trust their own mind. They may have violent, intrusive thoughts about harming somebody. It can be someone close to them. It could even be someone they don't even know. OCD tends to attack what people care about. Some of the common obsessions are just fearful of harming other people with intent, like they want to do it. Sometimes they have the fear of harming somebody on accident, like a hit and run kind of accident. Even the fear of harming themselves. We know that whenever we feel anxious, our body is designed to remove it. It will give you that urge to do a compulsion. Just like if I were standing in the middle of the road and a car were coming right at me, I would feel a little bit anxious and it would say, get out of the way, get out of the way. It would warn me that I was in danger. So when these individuals are feeling this in their brain, they're having these intrusive thoughts, it can feel so absolutely real that they may harm somebody. And their body's doing it. It's urging them to say, stay safe. So what they do is they do a compulsion. These compulsions can look like hide the objects that your brain says you may use to harm somebody someday. There sometimes are checking behaviors. I might be looking through my whole past to make sure that I will never do something like this, that I'm not even capable of doing this. I need to make sure that I would never follow through with this. So I could be checking the internet, I could be asking friends, family. I could just be looking through my whole past, even be looking at my journals. Essentially, these people want to debunk these thoughts. They want to make sure that they are not real, that they would never happen, that they're not even capable of this. Sometimes there's a lot of reassurance asking, just trying to find out, is this normal? Is this not? Do other people have these thoughts? Do they not? This is not to be used for reassurance, but let me tell you a secret. These thoughts are common. It's reported that 85% of the non-OCD population admits to having unwanted, violent thoughts. These thoughts can include harming somebody else, somebody that they love, harming their kids, anything. The difference though is when this individual doesn't have OCD and they're having these thoughts, it kind of goes through one ear and goes out the other. When it's OCD, it's like, ooh, this is a big deal. You better take care of this one. I can't believe you'd even think about that. Shame on you. So you came here for the treatment. So let's actually go into that. The treatment for this is called exposure and response prevention. And don't close the video just yet. We are going to go through what it is. It's not as scary as maybe what you think. When it comes to the OCD cycle, what happens is that people have these triggers. These things that trigger their brain that's to say you may actually harm somebody, you better be careful. And of course, whenever there's a trigger, our brain wants to make sense of it. It wants to figure out, why did I even think this way? So if I had an intrusive thought of possibly harming my child, my brain says, well, that probably means that you're a bad person. It wants to put some meaning on it. It puts its own thoughts. And so if I felt like I'm a bad person, I'm gonna feel anxious about it, right? If I feel anxious about it, my brain, like I said, we're gonna feel that urge to remove it. So my brain's gonna say, hey, you know what? Make sure that you don't have anything around you that would even come close to you hurting your child. Don't even risk it. Maybe you need to avoid them for the next few days just to make sure. Maybe you need to research on the internet. Do other people have thoughts like this about their kids? It's important to know the OCD cycle because we tend to use this when we're creating treatment. I tend to tell people to keep track of their triggers, keep track of their perceived threats, and keep track of their compulsions throughout the week. I want them to be really good at recognizing and finding those common themes that come up. It's every time I see a knife, it's every time there's some scissors around me, it's every time my child runs at me at fast speed. Whenever I'm driving, here's all the compulsions I'm doing as well. Sometimes it's great to have a loved one help you also. Sometimes they see compulsions that you don't even know you're doing. What we do is we create a hierarchy. Gradual exposures. We want to start with something small and go up. Or some people choose to randomize their exposure. So they may say it doesn't matter if it's small or big, I'm just going to do whatever the trigger is that's in my head. But here are the rules for exposures. We won't ever ask you to do anything that we wouldn't do ourselves. We don't ask you to do anything that's illegal, immoral, or even dangerous. We'll never even force you to do anything. You're the boss in all this. But here are some examples of what people may do for exposures. So if you think about it, if someone can't drive because they're fearful of hitting a pedestrian, we will do some therapy sessions in a car. We'll be driving around. We'll really be focusing on not doing those compulsions. We don't need to have them swerve all over the road. We could if you choose to. But you're saying in your head, hey, I may or may not be hitting somebody. I may or may not hit somebody, I don't know. Or we can completely agree with a thought. We say, hey, if my brain's just gonna tell me I hit someone, I'm just gonna say, sure, man, I totally did. I totally hit somebody today. We may even go to church parking lots and we'll ride up and down the sidewalk to simulate going over some bumps and saying, man, I'm hitting people right now, this is great. And you probably think, Nate, you sound weird. You probably shouldn't be saying things like this. But what I'm showing is that you are responding differently to these perceived threats. Your perceived threat wants you to run away and be scared and stop and avoid. But instead you're saying, cool man, I'm just enjoying the ride. I'm responding like I don't care, even if it sounds weird, even if it sounds wrong. We may even turn it into a game like, hey, every bump that I go over, I'm gonna say 10 points, 20 points, 30 points. We're going to 100 points today. We're going to a 150 today. Another example, if a mom must wash her hands compulsively before she prepares her food for her kids because she's worried that she's gonna poison them, she needs to prepare some meals for her kids without compulsively washing. Maybe she puts that spice in there that she feels like is going to harm her child. And again, these threats in their head, they're saying, maybe, maybe not, or they're completely agreeing with it. Yeah, I'm totally poisoning my kids today. Man, I guess we'll see later what happens. Like I said, I know it sounds weird, but we need to respond to this differently because you're stepping up to the bully. You're agreeing to the thought. You're possibly even adding more details to it that it didn't even tell you. Another example, if a man can't hug his kids because he's fearful of strangling them, we will assign him to probably hug his kids pretty consistently. Read some books, have them on his lap, hold them real tight, even wrap them in towels. And that threat is like, you're probably gonna do this. I would probably be more careful. And you're saying, yeah, man, I'll probably snap and maybe strangle my child. Ooh, I can't believe I just said that. Sounds weird, but we're just gonna do it because we're taking the power away from these thoughts. Another example, if a child repeatedly asks his parents for reassurance, he wants to make sure he didn't actually harm somebody else. We practice having that child tolerate their anxiety without asking for reassurance. He may be writing on a piece of paper, I may or may not have hurt somebody. Maybe he's throwing some pillows at his brother. Maybe he's placing certain things in the way for people to bump into them as they're walking through the hallway. They're doing things on purpose to possibly harm somebody. But like I said, we tend to do some gradual exposures. We create a hierarchy, we know the meanings, and we're doing these exposures. So let's say Jenny tracked some of her symptoms throughout the week. And here's some of the things that she came up with, and we created a hierarchy for it. Like number one, we said, sit next to your mom on the couch and say, hey, I may or may not harm you today, mom. Second step, sit next to the mom on the couch with scissors in your hand and say, hey, I may or may not harm you with these scissors today, mom. Number three, sit next to your mom on the couch with scissors and start cutting paper all over the place and say, mom, I may or may not harm you with these scissors today. Like I said, we can also just agree with it and say, I'll probably harm you with these scissors. As you can see, we create a few exposures for one particular fear, but we can also go all over the place. We can just take the threats in your head and create exposures with them. So it may be step number one, sit next to your mom with these scissors. Step number two, watch video clips of your trigger. Step number three, watch videos of car crashes. Step number four, walk in crowded places. Step number five, walk on a bridge with your hands out. You're possibly going to be ready to push somebody if you feel the urge. These exposures tend to be kind of a three-step process. Like step one, do an action. Sit next to your mom. Step two, Take the threats in your head, leave them uncertain, or agree with them. Step 3, resist doing the compulsions. This doesn't tend to be a complicated process, but we overthink it. I know it's scary, but the important part is that you're going to keep going until your anxiety has reduced by half. And if it doesn't, that's okay as well. Because what we're doing is we are retraining your brain. You need to teach your brain that it's telling you that you are in danger and you're not reacting to it. What you got to do is repeat, 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 repeat. Woo. The goal is to stop figuring this out. No more what ifs, no more reassurance, no more debating if you're a good person or a bad person. No more figuring out if you're capable of harming somebody today. You pretty much take anything, any fear that you have, you step closer to it. People tend to think that when it comes to Harm OCD, it's too risky. You can't do exposures with something like this. You can do exposures with like contamination OCD, but not Harm OCD. There's no way. But you're not different. You're not special. Well, no, you're special. But you're not special in the way that your OCD makes you think you're special. Medications can help. They reduce 40 to 60% of symptoms for a lot of individuals. This may be something you speak to your prescriber about and see what they think. It can help somebody do this treatment just a little bit better. So do you need a little extra help with your OCD? So I have created this online self-directed course that is very structured on how to do treatment, how to do exposures, and everything you need to know about your OCD. I mimic everything that I teach in my therapy sessions. I'll link it down in the description below. So let me know, do you struggle with Harm OCD? What does it look like for you? Remember, the more we talk about this, the more we take power away from it. Let's help each other out. And also remember, when it comes to your OCD, it is your job to face the unknown.